I'm Chief. Welcome to Chief Logic. Reset without reinventing yourself. We're on code 3, clean start trap. A lot of people don't delay because they're lazy. They delay because they're trying to start clean. They want the Monday start, the first of the month start, the new notebook start, the when things slow down start. They want the version of their life where nothing is messy, nothing is behind, and nothing is carrying residue from the last attempt. And they don't say it like that. They call it being organized. They call it doing it right. They call it setting themselves up for success. But the clean start is usually not a strategy, it's a hiding place. Reality doesn't reset on command. Life keeps its fingerprints on everything. You don't get a morning without yesterday in it. You don't get a week without the week before. You don't get a body without the last year. You don't get a business without the last set of decisions. That's not pessimism, that's the actual terrain. The clean start trap works because it feels responsible. It feels like maturity. It feels like you're taking it seriously. And on the surface, it makes sense to want a fresh slate. The problem is the price you pay to keep that slate imaginary. You end up postponing action until conditions match, a fantasy that never arrives. The reframe is simple. Most resets don't come from starting fresh. They come from continuing with a new rule. You don't need a clean start. You need a clean constraint, a small, repeatable boundary that changes what happens next, even if everything behind you is still messy. Because what you're calling a fresh start is often just a request to avoid discomfort without admitting it. Here's the mechanism. Clean starts give you the emotional reward of progress without the cost of progress. Planning can feel like movement, organizing can feel like momentum. Research can feel like work, and starting over can feel like control. And if you've been carrying shame or frustration, the clean start offers relief. It says this time won't be contaminated by last time. That relief is real, but it's also dangerous because it becomes the payoff that replaces execution. What makes it a trap is that clean is not a real condition. It's a feeling you chase, and feelings don't stay stable long enough to support a system. So you keep trying to engineer the perfect beginning, the perfect schedule, the perfect setup, perfect tools, the perfect mindset. You spend time arranging the runway instead of taking off. Then when you finally begin and something goes wrong, you interpret the disruption as proof you wasn't ready, which sends you right back to preparation mode. The clean start trap is basically perfection wearing a sensible outfit. It shows up in health when people say they'll start once they get groceries right, once they get that gym membership, once their sleep improves, once their stress drops. It shows up in money when people say they'll start saving once they make more, once they pay off this, that, whatever. Once the timing makes sense, it shows up in work when people say they'll start creating once they have the right gear, once they have the right plan, once they know the direction. All of it sounds logical, and that's why it works. But the consequence is always the same. You train yourself to believe that your life has to be clean before you can act. And you silently teach yourself that acting inside mess is irresponsible. That belief will keep you stuck forever because adulthood is mostly learning to operate while things are unfinished. When you ignore this, you don't lose time, you lose continuity. Continuity is how real change happens. It's how trust builds. It's how identity forms. Continuity is the quiet proof that you can keep going even when it's not perfect. The clean start trap breaks continuity on purpose. It tells you don't pick up from here because here is tainted. So you throw away partial progress. You reset the clock. You restart the streak. And you keep convincing yourself that restarting is the same as recommitting. Over time, you develop a strange relationship with effort. You can feel motivated and still be unreliable because your reliability is tied to conditions being ideal. That's a fragile arrangement. Life doesn't respect it. The deeper consequence is psychological. Every time you start over, you make a quiet agreement with yourself. If I can't do it clean, I won't do it at all. That agreement sounds like standards in practice. It becomes avoidance with manners. Now you're not just dealing with the original issue, you're dealing with the fact that you've made clean beginnings your main source of hope. And the moment the beginning gets dirty, hope collapses. That's how people end up in cycles that look like inconsistency, but the real driver is an addiction to the feeling of the reset. There's a practical reason this happens. When you're behind, the first thing you want is relief. A clean start promises relief before the work has to speak for itself. It gives you a moment where you can believe your future without confronting your present. That's why it's so tempting. A person can lose months to clean starts without ever missing a day of trying. They're always preparing. They're always beginning. They're always about to become the version of themselves they respect. And because the beginning feels active, they can stay in that loop and still believe they're moving forward. At some point, you have to call it what it is. A clean start is not the beginning of change. It's often the delay of change dressed up as discipline. Picture somebody who says they're going to reset their life. They buy a new planner, clean their workspace, reorganize their apps, and map out a perfect week. They do a full audit of their habits, write out goals, and even set reminders. It feels serious, and the first day or two, it looks strong because novelty is carrying the weight. Then Wednesday hits. Sleep was short, a meeting ran long, somebody needed something. The day doesn't match the plan. Now the plan feels ruined. Instead of adjusting, they collapse the whole week. They tell themselves they'll start again Monday because Monday is clean. That one decision is the trap. In its purest form, the problem wasn't the disruptive day. The problem was the belief that disruption means failure. And the reason it feels like failure is because their commitment was to a clean sequence, not to the actual behavior. You miss one workout and you scrap the week. You eat one off-plan meal and you throw the day away. You miss one posting day and you vanish for a month. And you have one sloppy morning, so you declare the routine dead. The clean start trap turns one imperfect moment into a permission slip to quit. Because the only version you were willing to commit to was the perfect one. Control is how you preserve agency. You don't fight the clean start trap with more motivation. You fight it with a different rule. The rule is this: you don't restart, you resume. Resuming is a skill. It's a decision you practice. It means you stop treating the middle as a moral failure. You accept that the middle is what life is made of, and you build your reset around what you can repeat inside the middle. So instead of fresh start, you build a reset protocol that assumes mess. You choose the smallest action that restores direction, not the biggest plan that restores pride. You pick a constraint you can keep even on the day that goes sideways. If you're resetting your health, the rule might be no 0 days, not a perfect workout, just some movement that keeps the chain alive. If you're resetting your finances, the rule might be transfer something on payday, even if it's small, because continuity matters more than the number. If you're resetting your output, the rule might be publish on schedule, even if it's not your favorite piece, because your audience doesn't need your perfection. They need your presence. You also stop doing resets that require a new personality. If your plan only works when you have extra time, extra energy, and no interruptions, it isn't a reset, it's a vacation fantasy. A real reset is designed to survive Tuesday. It survives the distracted morning. It survives the late meeting. It survives a day where you don't feel like the version of yourself you respect. That's what makes it real. The clean start trap tells you the goal is to begin in a way that feels pure. The truth is, the goal is to continue in a way that stays honest. You don't need a new life. You need a rule that keeps you moving when life isn't cooperating, because that's when your system is actually being tested. That's the difference between a reset and a restart. A restart is just simply theater. A reset is a constraint you can carry. Stay sharp, stay grounded.